the stars be with you.
All right, I'd love to welcome my special guest for this week, Analisa Six. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yay, and Analisa is back for the second time. If you have listened to previous versions of this podcast, I believe you were on, I want to say episode 5, I think. It's okay if you don't remember.
You're like, great to me.
Sure, yeah. Which I think I already forgot what episode this is. I think this is 15. So 10 episodes later, wow. Analisa's back.
Awesome.
And I'm so happy to have her here because last time she was here, we actually talked about new moon, new normal, which was the new moon in Taurus that happened in mid-May and around the time that we had our first Mars-Uranus square happen, which I really feel like that kind of kicked off the next coming months. And here we are again about to be in what I'm titling round 2, the new moon solar eclipse in Leo. So we are squaring that original point that we had initially talked on. So I find it quite perfect to have her back. So Analisa, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
I live in Oakland, California, and I do tarot and astrology readings here for about a year and a half now. I'm a Leo, so this is a very exciting time for me right now. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes.
And yeah, that's about it. I have 2 dogs, an Aquarius French Bulldog, and a Cancer Boston Terrier.
Oh, how do they get along?
They wrestle. They fight sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Aquarius likes to dominate the Cancer.
That's funny. Oh, well. Do you find the Aquarius gravitates to you more being the Leo?
Yeah, actually. He totally does. That's partially, though, I think, because he bullies the other dog away from me. So the other dog can only really be with me when he's like done with me.
When he allows it to happen.
He allows it,
like,
yeah.
Okay, I've had my time.
Anyway,
we need a whole like podcast on like dog and cat charts because I think that would be fascinating.
So
I don't know what I have. My kitty Loretta, I don't know what her sign is because when we adopted her, they gave her the birthday of January 1st, 2015. And I was like, that probably isn't right. And they're like, yeah, it could be a 6-month time period in between. So yeah, who knows?
You need a pet psychic to let you know, like what.
That's right.
She's telling you, yeah.
Yes, for more than just the age, trust me. And it's funny too because when I got her, she was like 2.5 or something, or supposedly 2.5, and then we had to get a surgery a handful of months later for her, and the vet at that time was like, I don't know, with what she had, I would think she's more like 7 or 8. So who knows? I don't know when this cat was born or how old it is. So
that's the thing about adopting. You'll never know.
You'll never know unless I get that pet psychic, right?
Yeah.
Get in there. I've known people that have kind of sworn by a few people that have had really good luck with pet psychics for their animals. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe I will have to look into it. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we are here to talk about this new moon solar eclipse in Leo, and I wanted to hear it from the Leo's mouth since you've probably been up in the mix for actually last couple years as we've had a lot of eclipses in the Leo Aquarius realm. Have you found your life to have significantly changed in that time period?
Yes, totally. The first significant one, I guess, was 2016. And that I wasn't studying any of this stuff the way that I am now, and so I wasn't aware that that's what was happening. But if I think to 2016, 2017, 2018, it's all been a lot for sure. So I'm like, oh, okay. The more aware of it I am, though, I feel like the less it knocks me around.
Well, that's usually the case of it when we can kind of really put our minds around what has happened, where we've come, where we're going, all that. It seems helps stabilize it a bit. But in the moment, I have a lot of planets in Leo myself, so I was not left out of the fun for sure. What's that?
What planets do you have in Leo?
I have Mercury and Jupiter conjunct.
Ooh, nice.
In a less than a degree orb, and then I have my midheaven is in Leo.
Oh, that's great.
So yes, So the world sees the Leo.
Yeah, that's a very positive.
Yeah. So it has been, I mean, there have been challenges for sure. Just like you're saying, things have certainly changed. But just the journey has been a fun one when I look back on it, and step out of like particular like detail, step out of my Saturn and Virgo self, like picking apart things. But there have definitely been some good moments, and Leo is all about that, the moment, living in the here and now. So, all right. Now, speaking of the here and now, we have round 2. We have our second solar eclipse. What do you think about the first one that happened? Did you notice anything with the Cancer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like I notice it more with my clients because the way that I feel like it's a positive thing to be a reader because you spend so much time helping others when there's these difficult transits that sometimes it's hard to really, like, you don't have to sit with your own stuff in such an isolated way. Like, it's kind of like, okay, like everyone's feeling a lot right now. It's not just me. So it kind of helps me separate from the effects of it. But I feel like it was really an emotional time. I had a lot of people reaching out to me just saying that they were just continuously crying and just like kind of at a loss for a lot of things going on in their lives. So yeah, I felt like the first one, I kept telling people, remember, it's an eclipse right now. Like, I was like, what's happening right now? And I'm like, eclipse.
Don't forget. Yeah. Well, and it's funny how, I don't know if you had this happen, but when we have moments like this, people maybe you haven't even talked to in a long time out of the woodwork are like, there's something going on. Why are people acting so crazy? Is people going nuts?
The Cancer one, I feel like, was the most past-oriented eclipse for people this year. Like, for me, what I see this eclipse period being is like a shadow of last year's trifecta, and that this is like our last little period to really solidify, like basically all the themes that came up during eclipse season last year came back this year for people. And so they're seeing like, wow, that person I broke up with back last summer during blah, blah, blah time all of a sudden reached out to me for the first time during that eclipse. And they're like, I thought I was over this. Like, I thought I would work through this. I'm getting all the same buttons pushed again. And my response was like, well, that's because what you didn't heal, like that little last bit that needs to get kind of drilled out, the universe is anything that was kind of left over, I feel like, from that period that didn't get healed up until now. This is like our time to heal it through this period. And then it's kind of like, because the nodes change, right? So like this is our last hurrah in this bubble. Once this eclipse happens, this is really like, okay, set this intention because the node's not going to be here anymore. Like, we're moving into the next cycle or whatever. And so I kind of like, I had a reading special where I kind of, the 2 first eclipses I paired together in a reading, and kind of, it was like the Cancer one I called active healing, because it was we had to choose what we were going to heal, whereas in some cases sometimes I feel like we're forced into it. But I feel like this was very much like, no, you need to actively decide right now that you're self-healing in this little bubble with the solar energy, and then the lunar letting it go, and then here we are in the, hopefully this period you're letting that stuff go. And then the 11th comes and you have an opportunity to, like, set it on fire.
Set it in motion, or make it fixed into place if we are thinking of Leo and more of fixed type energy. But I love what you're saying about people being drawn back to the past with the solar eclipse that happened in Cancer. And it's so interesting because I can totally see how that would manifest in some of the people that I have talked to in situations that I saw. But it's so interesting at the same time because, like you're saying, the nodes move. So the nodes are about to move back into Cancer and then the Capricorn axis. And so that solar eclipse was a new, like a foreshadowing of energy of what we're going to work on for the next, couple of years when it's in there. But at the same time, it brings back elements of the past in order to start that new chapter. So I find that very interesting, and I hadn't kind of like put those two together yet. So excellent observation. And especially since that particular eclipse had Sun opposite Pluto. So obviously, if anything had been, lying underneath and in that kind of underworld belly, and with Mars retrograde, anything that's pent up that needs to come out, that makes total sense. So I love what you have going on there. And if we think about this being the last solar eclipse, there's one more lunar eclipse that's going to happen in Leo, I believe, at the beginning of next year. But it's the last solar eclipse. I hope I'm saying that right. So it makes me think of the fact that we have like worked on kind of our heart space and that heart intention for so long. And now we can finally kind of set that into motion with this eclipse for good. Kind of fix it into place,
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. That's what Leo's all about.
That's right. Well, what is Leo all about?
You would know better. Words of a Leo.
Yes, let's hear from the lioness's mouth. What would you?
I
say?
think that Leo energy is all about connecting to the heart, and I think that it's interesting. Like when I meet people that don't have a lot of Leo energy, I feel like love and feeling love can be kind of harder. Like it's more of a logical thing than it is a body chemistry, or just kind of, I'm not saying every Leo feels that way, but I think that it's a lot about sharing love and sharing. I mean, it's a lot about sharing. I look at Leo energy in myself as I just always want to share everything, more so than most people, I think. And I don't mean just in social media, but I just mean like it's important for me to like have people to do things with, because my existence only really feels validated if other people are enjoying it. But it's not as like Leo, I think, gets kind of a rap for being self-centered. And I think while there are a lot of self-centered performer-based Leos, it really is about whether or not the person or people on the other end are genuinely enjoying it. And if there's like a genuine like love soul connection there, when it's in its light aspect. I think the shadow aspect of Leo, if there's an insecure Leo, it manifests more into an ego projection in that way. But yeah, and I think connecting to like the inner child, like even though the Fool card is ruled by Aquarius, I feel like because Aquarius is that opposite of Leo, I think Leo possesses that quality that kind of gets brought out into the Aquarius, like 11th house energy. Like there's that need for that playfulness, that kind of, where we dream, where we fantasize, where we can kind of connect to more of the theatrical side of life that rules the 5th house, creativity, the flow of creativity. And Leo energy too, I feel like fire energy especially is some of the hardest to like really define, like, because it's the spark, it's the spiritual spark. And I think that like whenever I've talked to people that also lack fire in their charts, that's usually the hardest for them to understand, is like, okay, well, I get what emotions are, I get what water is, I get what air and the mind is, I get what the physical earth body is, but what is spirit, what is fire? It's like, it's this very abstract thing. And I feel like Aries and Leo and Sagittarius are all about more of this connection to creative energy. It's what drives us. It's our why, it's like, how do we make ourselves want to be here? That's kind of what makes humans kind of weird, is like there's a little something extra. And I feel like Leo kind of in that 5th house is, it's about that. Not saying other signs don't possess the same qualities, but I think Leo Yeah.
If you're lacking fire, you know, it's almost like you're lacking fire. Just that, because you know, if we think about fire, we think about inspiration. You know, we think about passion, and something that rises up from within, right? Because heat rises, so it makes sense. And I, you know, and when you're a fiery person like myself and yourself, you know, because you have that Leo energy and you're Sag rising, right? So you have that same fire going on. When you talk to people that don't have as much fire, sometimes it's almost like I'm trying to rev them up. Like I want a better response. You know, I want the same like enthusiasm, because that's another thing with fire is it's enthusiastic about what it's expressing itself about, right? So I feel you, girl.
Yeah, totally. And then if you're around fire signs that they're not like in touch with that part of themselves, like they're trying to dim their light in that way, like that manifests into kind of like a negative way. So I think I've learned too about being a Leo, like, well, first growing up as a Leo, I thought everyone wanted to be a Leo. So that's where the self-centeredness comes in, is that Leo thinks everyone wants to be Leo.
Yeah. Isn't it great?
Yeah, I will admit that. But then you get older and you realize everyone's sick of Leo's shit. If it's like, you know, if your fire's like blazing to the point that it needs to come down and get contained. So then, you know, as a Leo in your teenage years, you're trying to like contain this fire, especially if you're double fire, triple fire, you know, kind of sign. And then, you know, you dim it down to the point where it's almost out and you feel horrible and not like yourself. And then you realize like the only way you can be a Leo or a fire sign is if that fire is ablazing. But I think any fire sign or any fire dominant person knows that you have the hardest job of walking in that middle, where you always are having to throw kindling on or take it down, because you're either going to burn the whole place down or you're going to lose your light for good. And so I think that's kind of the hardest task for a fire sign.
Oh my God. I love that. That's a great analogy, Analisa. It's true, because you have to tend it and stoke it. But at the same time, if it gets out of control, then you're going to burn the whole place down.
Yeah.
So I love that, because you can't let it go out. And I've witnessed that myself, you know, when we have certain times, and that might be part of this solar eclipse that's happening, because, you know, we're having a new moon. So essentially we're setting an intention of some sort, a heart-based intention that is going to fulfill itself, you know, in the coming months, and probably in the next couple of years, it'll fully play out. But yeah, you know, when you're faced with certain situations in your life, or at least me personally, where you get disheartened, you know, and then you pull back and then you lose that fire, and because it's hard when you get pushed down a little bit for having those type of qualities, or you're so enthusiastic. When have you been, Mercury is killing me right now.
I know.
So when have you been enthusiastic about something and then someone throws like some water on it?
Yeah.
Or, you know, and so when I feel like I've been dampened out, or like life has dampened me in a sense, you know, sometimes I would just let the fire go out, but then over some time you realize that that's not sustainable, because, you know, it gets cold real quick, like you're saying, like that kind of detachedness and not being centered back in that. And so it is very important to have that balance, because if you do have that fire energy, and we all do in some respects in our charts, some way more than others, you know, you have to tend to that, because otherwise it will get you, like it'll haunt you. Passion haunts. Expression haunts.
It totally does. You can't ever completely put it out when it's there.
Yeah.
I feel like it was, especially if it's there in a strong way. But yeah, I feel like it's interesting this year. I feel like people, maybe I'm just witnessing things in a way I haven't before, but I feel like the energy around Leo season this year is extra positive. I don't know if you noticed that, but I feel like everyone after the Cancer eclipse and the Aquarius lunar eclipse was just like, thank God for Leo season. I think I've been so used to being around people where I feel like I have to diminish my Leo and Sag kind of qualities. I felt like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can I can step into myself this year and not feel so, yeah, I don't know what it is. I think everybody's I think self-love has been a theme over the last few years on social media that has grown. And I think maybe some of the Leo eclipse energy is helping people see the benefit of that and seeing the light aspect of Leo and how Leo allows there to be space for that. And that's what I feel like this new moon is about, is kind of finding ways to cultivate self-love around your belief systems. And the lunar eclipse is here to kind of braise up all those insecurities so that they can be acknowledged and kind of, Aquarius energy is very like hard and intellectually like focused in a rebellious kind of way. And I feel like if we're feeling all of this judgment or imploding on the self because insecurities are being brought out into the light with some of this square energy going on, I feel like the Leo's in here to kind of help you figure out, okay, well, how do I make space to love myself through the growing pains? And I feel like it's here to kind of get us back in line with our goals, like, who are we? What do we want? What are we doing here?
Yeah. How we have fun. How do we find joy? How do we express ourselves? Are we expressing ourselves from the heart's base? Because essentially, before I forget, I want to say that when Leo season rolled around, you had a hilarious Instagram post. I can't remember what it looked like, but you're just like, well, yeah, we can let it all out now.
Yeah.
There's no shame.
I'm done apologizing for it. I know I'm a good person.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I have enough Leo in me to really appreciate that. Anyways, I wanted to get that out before I forgot that because it was pretty funny. So people go look at her feed to check that out. But yeah, so basically we have Mercury retrograding over this point where we're going to have this solar eclipse in Leo, and then Jupiter is all squaring the energy from Scorpio, and we have our Sun Mercury conjunction when Mercury's retrograde, that halfway point a few days before the eclipse. So I think you're absolutely right about the self-love aspect, but I almost feel like we've gotten far enough along in those lines. Like, I totally agree, but I almost feel like like you said, it's been very prominent online for the last, couple years, because it's almost like we were guided in that direction based on circumstances and what we were going through in our lives, where we had no chance but to learn self-love in order to survive it all and to like reconnect with ourselves and to reconnect with the heart. So I think, if anything, I feel like this solar eclipse might be putting that self-love that you speak about into motion, because now we're, especially with this retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, going over this point, getting us more and more aligned with that Leo energy, at least in our mind's eye, so that we can, because the mind has to be on the same page as the heart. And I really think that this retrograde is helping that along. So, it might not be immediate, all this kind of eclipse action, especially with all these retrogrades. We were just talking about this, 7 retrogrades it'll be, with Uranus going backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Backwards.
Yes. So it's hard to say if
all perception. It's all an illusion.
Right.
It's like a hologram.
It
you
is.
Can be whatever you want.
Yeah. It is all hologram everywhere. Anything. That's for another podcast though. And so I totally feel you. Like, I think this, especially with Jupiter squaring from Scorpio, and Jupiter to Scorpio has been kind of intense. What better word can we have for it?
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And so now we're really pushing through into that growth finally, now that it's squaring. Like, it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll have to put my heart on the line to some extent in order to make the changes necessary to align with it for the future. But that's just one way of looking at it.
Yeah, totally. I feel like overindulgence is definitely a theme with some of the Jupiter energy too. Like, it's been hard. It's been hard with the retrogrades so far that have been very action oriented, but then some of the Jupiter and Neptune aspects to kind of balance that with staying disciplined. I feel like there's been a lot of kind of like I want to get all the stuff done, but I also want to distract myself and overindulge over here. And I feel like the eclipse has a lot of that in it, like the theme kind of around like,
that's true.
yeah, like I have all these things I want to do, but I also am kind of over here in overindulgent fantasy land. And how much is my mind ruling the show right now? Like you're saying, the mind-heart connection. So I feel like it'll just bring more of that stuff to the surface. And yeah, I think that if we're in a place of setting the intentions and we're moving towards Virgo season through that, Virgo season will probably be where we start really seeing it physically come out, because Virgo is focused on that. But I feel like it is important that we just let go. I think this is really like, make sure before the 11th you let go of any weird residual stuff from the past year and really get clear about what the heart wants. I feel like I've been doing a lot of work with my heart chakra this year, and the heart is the mirror. The heart reflects exactly what it is you're going to get. And a lot of times we'll sit and think, well, I want this logically in my mind. I'm telling the universe I want this. But if the heart isn't actually in that place, let's say your heart's more in a shadow place where it's like, well, I want Julie to be happy, but really your heart's in this like, fuck Julie, I'm jealous. Like you have to pay attention to those shadow and light aspects of the mind and the heart to really understand how much your heart rules the show in terms of a subconscious manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what I'm kind of always trying to teach. I feel like that's my job as Leo, is to teach people how to learn how to have that relationship with their hearts, and understanding if you don't actually really believe it, or you don't really actually feel it, or you don't actually really want it, it doesn't happen. And if you have shadow stuff that you're suppressing, that you haven't worked through, that reflects into the reality. And so I think this period is, you're on the 11th, on that eclipse, wherever your heart is whether you intentionally set that intention or not, you're karmically bringing into the next cycle wherever you're at right now. And so this little window of like shedding and letting go of whatever patterns or belief systems that the first Cancer solar eclipse brought up in this trifecta, like get that out, do that healing, do that growth. Don't get mad about it. Like just do it. And then try to get your heart in as pure of a place as you can about what it is you want. Be honest with yourself about what it is you're even capable of handling. Because there's a lot of stuff that I want that I'm not ready for, you know. That sometimes you be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point though, thinking about getting rid of like all that we've been dealing with in the last month with the eclipse energy. And obviously eclipses take some time to play out. So we're not out of the woods, out of any of what we're talking about now. But I think that is a good way to go forward, because especially with that Sun-Pluto opposition, like it brought things up, like it brought deep, dark, like whatever you needed to kind of just reroute all that gunk and that muck like to the surface, so that we can renovate to then align with the heart and what we're being called towards, either consciously or like you're saying, you know, the heart might be calling unconsciously, and this solar eclipse will bring about something that is aligned with that, but you might not be conscious of what that is just yet, or it might not be what you expect it to be. But I think you make a really good point about releasing especially what's brought up in the last month, because I think that purging was, you know, universe's little like, you know, nudge to like, come on, do the work. So
I'm excited. I feel like it's going to be really positive for setting, you know, the rest of the year into motion, like you were saying, for sure.
Yeah. And even like the rest of the year, and then through, you know, the next couple years as we get to this next as we get into the Cancer Capricorn axis, when the nodes shift there, the Leo North node seems so important because this is a period and a rare period that we only get to go through every 18 and a half years, to emotionally align with that heart in like a deeper, more soulful, purposeful way. And so we don't want to lose this opportunity, right? So if your heart is speaking, it wants to speak, you got to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's a lot of listening going on right now, as far as that's concerned. And especially since if we look back to that Taurus new moon that we talked about so many ages ago, it seems like, even though it's only 3 months, that was around the time that, everything was shifting for me personally, even on like lighter levels. Because I asked Analisa before we got on here, I was like, oh, remember when we talked about the new normal? Have things changed for you? And she's like, yeah, but not on a, like on a more subtle type of thing.
It's like there's still time. Like we're trying to buy land right now, which is a new moon in Taurus, Uranus, Taurus.
I know.
But it's all still up in the air. So it's like, I don't know, if you talk to me in a couple weeks, I might say like, so much has changed, but right now I still feel very, like I was saying, I'm holding my breath. I feel very like still things are happening.
Mm-hmm. Things are happening. Yeah. That is about as basic but as about perfect as you can be right now. Things are happening. And even when I think about new normal too, like if you think about new normal for that new moon that basically kind of spurred into action some of what we are talking, that's metamorphosed into some of what we're dealing with for this solar eclipse. When we think about normal, there's nothing really special about it, right? Like that's what makes it normal. And so perhaps that is part of the whole thing, is that the new normal, it doesn't have to be shockingly different.
Yeah.
It's just subtly new and expanding upon itself.
That's how it feels. I feel very much like, yes, everything is new, but it's not, it's not chaotic. It feels very grounded and very like, but that's for me. I'm talking to tons of people regularly that are having their new normal maybe be a little more chaotic, So
Yeah. And that really plays testament to the fact that it depends on what your natal chart looks like and where these are hitting, because we can talk about all this so fervently, but if it's not really, contacting a particular part of your chart that is going to set those more drastic things into motion, then you might be like Analisa being like, it's been, but it's subtle. And other people I know, their whole life has changed dramatically in so many ways. So
many people.
And I have to say that I've been shocked along the way, especially with some people's passings. Like I've had a couple friends leave this planet in the last couple of months, and that happens, especially the older you get, then it makes you realize how much you should not take advantage of, every day that you live. Very Leo principle, live in the moment, right? Yes, you got to, because these are the prime examples and reminders of when you're not doing that, what are you you're missing out on life, essentially. And there's that fire, there's that thing that we can't put our finger on that we were talking about earlier. And it's just that, it's life, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really frustrating.
Yeah, it happens. And I'm not alone. I'm sure there's many other people that were dealing with the same thing. But even then, I've seen a handful of babies being born. Like, I think I talked about this with Lisa on 2 podcasts ago when we were, that 2 weeks ago was pretty crazy astrologically. And I was like, imagine the babies being born right now. And then all of a sudden they started popping up on my feed.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I think it's going to be a crop of some pretty amazing people.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. Some dynamic folks that are being born right now. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
I get to be somebody's astrologer out of that generation.
Yeah, there you go. You'll be like, I remember the time when
the world was in chaos and Donald Trump was president.
Oh, I love it. That's so funny. I know. Well, that's the funny thing is when you track the planets like we do, like chances are as time goes on, we might have those moments where, you see someone decades later and you're like, I remember that period. I remember living that period.
I know. I feel like I already feel like I'm doing that in some other dimension, some like parallel.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Especially when I talk to like older astrologers and people that talk about the 60s and 70s in that way, it's just, I already can kind of see how this is these podcasts we're doing, the blogs we're writing, all of the stuff, like this little collective of people, even online, like the way that we're doing this, like on Zoom, is going to be outdated technology someday.
So, yeah.
About it, and it's going to be but like this, what we're doing right now for us is like the future, like this is like information age, like crazy, like we're on Star Trek, kind of being able to see each other and talk about the stars, you in San Diego, me here. It feels so new, still.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if you asked Mel 20 years ago if I would have foreseen this, I'm not sure that I would have said yes. I remember being just fascinated with the computer in general. When I first got to I grew up with some Apple E's and stuff like that because I'm a child of the late 70s. So I got those, old Oregon Trail computers, the floppy disk that just goes right in. I know, me too. But I remember, the first time I was ever introduced to like AOL, and all that, and like a chat room where you could talk to people online. What?
I love chat rooms. I was in chat rooms like 24/7 when I was a kid.
Yeah, I had a problem. Yeah, it wasn't even my computer, and so I really had a problem.
The Leo needs to share. Like you have to connect.
Had to express.
Yeah, that's why social media is good for Leos, because it's like if you don't have people in your life, which when I was younger I didn't have people in my life that I could really be myself with, and so social media was like so positive for me in that way, and that's why even though people complain about it or think that it's toxic, for Leo it's really positive. It makes it so the people in our lives don't have to deal with us as often. I'd be out partying still probably all the time if it weren't for social media, just to kind of like now I can stay at home. I don't have to leave my house. I can be an introvert extrovert,
from the comfort of your own couch.
Oh, no, hold on a second. Oh man, can you pause? Is there an ability?
I will. Oh. Uh-oh.
I foresaw this happening.
She foresaw it.
I can't answer the door right now. Okay, I'm sorry.
This is a perfect Mercury moment.
That's going to be a podcast. That's the thing about living in a house is solicitors or, I think she was probably from a school, like trying to raise money. So that's sad. I didn't have any cash or anything. Anyways, but it's funny though, like I had this feeling that was going to happen during this podcast. And I put my dogs away just so that they're crazy right now. And so the fact that happened, I'm just like, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. Yeah. It hasn't happened in a really long time.
That's funny. The Pisces moon knew. She just sensed.
Yeah.
Well, the sun is going down on me. So for the video here, we will, well, before we go, let's talk about real quick, just tips for setting intentions with the heart or from the heart. Do you have anything to share maybe of like how to kind of connect and like listen or to set things up or just any type of anything along those lines?
Yeah, setting intentions with the heart. I think it's really important to use tarot cards when you're wanting, if you're somebody that has a lot of mental chatter, I think the tarot can be really good for helping, if you use tarot cards and you're listening to this, to, make a spread for yourself that is like, what intentions should I be setting for this solar eclipse, and pull like 5 or 6 cards and journal kind of what comes up. And then I always like to include like a couple letting go cards, usually of stuff that could be getting in the way of those intentions. And I like this because I think that, if your mind's when I was talking about, like, sometimes it's hard, you say you want something, but the heart wants something else. And I think the tarot can kind of help you decipher the mind versus the heart and where things are coming from. And so for me, that's usually how I decipher, and meditating kind of on those themes and seeing kind of what comes up. So that, and then I also think that just setting intentions around gratitude, like, I think every time you ask the universe for something, it's important to thank the universe for what you have already and to really take stock for what you've already been given. And so we ask for a lot as humans, like, we're constantly wanting more.
more.
And new moons are like setting intentions for more of what we want. And so if you're going to do that, if you're going to set intentions for more of what you want, do it, but include other people in that. Leo likes to share. So find people in your life that you want those good things to happen to as well, and include that in your intention setting. And then I would say that this is mostly around, it's like the spirit, right? It's not things so much in the physical. Not saying that you can't do that, but with the Leo spirit, we're not putting a finger on it kind of energy. This is about cultivating self-love, healing, confidence, the strength card, inner strength, inner confidence, temperance. Even though that's Sagittarius, I really feel like temperance is really important in that. Like, how do we stay confident while also being humble? Yeah. It's really common for us to get on that high horse and get knocked down real quick if we're not riding. It's what I talked about earlier. You got to ride that line. You got to keep the flame going, but you can't burn it out and you can't blow it up. So setting your intention for, like, how do I maintain self-love and confidence and go after what I want without, getting too impatient or ahead of myself, and trusting in my journey and trusting in how my journey develops versus comparing myself to the journey of others, which Leo can sometimes fall into, because Leo likes to share. Leo can also compare, and so can Aquarius. That polarity can be very, the 5 of Swords and the 5 of Wands, the competition comparison cards are really congruent with that. So letting go of the need to compete or compare and setting intentions for more of like a collective, unified respect for the journey, respect for the process.
Mm-hmm. And respect for the moment. If we keep thinking about, fire and like reminding ourselves, the intention of living in that moment, while doing it all, just because, especially with Aquarius, Mars retrograde there, we're thinking a lot about the future, especially with Jupiter squaring as well. So it's good to think about the future, but at the same time, how can we like utilize this particular moment in order to set that up, because it'll be all the moments of the now that will eventually get us to the future, which will then be the now.
Yeah, exactly. The compound effect.
Yeah.
You want your future self to thank you. I had a coworker, and she also always would thank her future self whenever her future self would do something right. So once we were in the future, she would say, like, thank you, past Sierra, for setting future Sierra. Or she would do something and she'd say, I'm going to do this for future Sierra because future Sierra will really like this. And she'd always kind of talk about herself in third person. And I do that now after working with her for a couple of years when we work together. And it's kept me motivated because I'm always thinking about, that's what you're doing when you're setting intentions. You're thinking about your future self and wanting to clear path to that future that you're trying to manifest for yourself, and make your future self happy.
Yeah, make your future self happy now, because it has to start sometime. So, and I find that even just breathing into the heart, like, if you're doing heart chakra work or doing chakra work, kind of just breathing in, breathing it down, in, out, and kind of connecting it, and connecting with it. And then asking, think of something that's really joyful in your life or that you want to connect with. And then, like light it up and then ask it questions. Cause the heart has its own mind in a sense. It has like a heart mind. And so I feel like you can ask it yes or no questions if you really need to get down to, you know, the bottom of something to get clear on your intentions. Because sometimes, you know, if you have, especially if you have some Libra planets, you know, you might be a little indecisive about what the heart wants. And so it's like, how do we set the intention if we don't know what that intention is?
Yeah.
So that's a way to maybe get clear on it first, because, you know, sometimes you just don't know until you ask, right?
And sometimes if you're Jupiter dominant, you just want it all, and it makes it really hard. So you have to also be a little realistic, a little Saturn in there.
Yeah.
Disciplined.
Yeah. And we have Venus squaring Saturn this week, which is a whole nother thing as I talk about Libra. We're not talking about any of this other action going on that's leading all up to it.
Well, I guess you could maybe cover it all real quick, like just mentioning it.
Yeah.
Here at the end.
Well, you know, and I will have mentioned it further in the podcast prior to us talking, but to recap, because I mean, really, like we talked about the fact that the sun and Mercury are both squaring Jupiter in this solar eclipse. They're having their conjunction together, but we also have Uranus basically stationary right now. It's just turned, well, not now as we talk, but when you hear this, it'll be stationing retrograde. And then Venus is going to trine Mars retrograde, square Saturn, and oppose Chiron. So Venus is in for a bit of a rework this week, particularly if we think about Libra and we think about Venusian principles, we think about harmony and balance. And so I feel like, especially our animal ambassador this week, if you listened earlier, is the mountain goat. And it talks about balancing one's life when something is out of balance at the moment. So I think that there is going to be that element as we lead up to the solar eclipse of having to find a certain level of balance and harmony within ourselves before we are able to even kind of set those intentions fully. So luckily that eclipse is at the end of the week after we kind of get through all these other planetary placements first. Oh, it's a lot, Analisa.
I'm excited for it though.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So
mostly because my birthday's coming up, but you know, I'm kind of excited because Mercury goes direct on my birthday, and my birthday is the week after the eclipse.
Oh.
So
well, you know, and the great Nina Griffin, who I just love, when I took a class of hers at UAC, and we were talking about the solar return chart, and we were talking about when a planet is stationary in the solar return, it signifies some great changes that can happen that year, especially in whatever that represents in your chart, and you know, the houses that it represents and stuff along those lines. So you're going to have to get in there and see what old Mercury stationing direct might have in store for you.
I'm having a solar return reading on my birthday with my astrologer, so
oh, perfect.
Yeah, I'm
that'd
hoping
be great.
she'll have some fun things to tell me that I might not think of or know about.
Oh yeah, it's always good to get an outside opinion, and that's what we're here for, right? Even when I'm in the dark.
Yeah. It's crazy, like sometimes when you talk to people that are wired differently than you, how much you realize you have to offer from a different perspective, just being wired differently. Like it's just beneficial to learn so many different points of view from different. That's why astrology is so fun. That's why I love astrology, because it's like the same stuff, but in a million different ways.
Yep.
Different things, and how it all comes together, and how we can all learn from the way we all process things differently. So
yeah. Perfect topic of conversation, right? Endless talk, and we could talk here forever. But I feel like Elton John right now feels like the sun's going down on me, which it has, and I'm in the complete dark. If you're watching this video, I'm all ooh. So all right, well, I know, which is so funny because we're on the same coast, yet you are all lit up, and I'm You are Sag rising up, and I am Scorpio rising down right now.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's hilarious. So anyways, well, we'll leave you with the words of connecting to the heart, right? Is that essentially what we're doing here? Connecting with the heart and embracing that self-love in order to move forward into the future. All right, Analisa. So tell people where they can find you, your site, what you do, what you have on offer, and all that.
Yeah, you can find me at cosmiclady6.com and on Instagram at cosmiclady6. And I do tarot readings and astrology, natal chart readings primarily, and transits. And then also, guidance around love, work, life, cultivating self-love, heart chakra work, dream work, meditation stuff, all that good stuff. Witchcraft, spells, rituals, anything.
Yes.
Karmic healing. I'm really into helping people discover their karmic path. So all those goodies.
Yes. Well, there's that Jupiter, that Sag Jupiter. Once again, we're back to doing it all.
Exactly. Everything.
I love it.
I've been told that I'm very overwhelming when you have a reading with me because of how much you get. So I see that as both positive and negative.
Well, I feel you. I can hear the same thing too.
Yeah.
And I try to rein it back, pull in what's most important in that moment, but it's hard because, and then even then you don't even tap it. Even what's overwhelming to that person, we've only tapped into like 10%, right?
Well, it's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's funny. So go check her out at Cosmic Lady 6, and she always has fun things to look at every day. There's always funny, just funny memes and am I saying that right? Memes. They're memes, right? I'm the only one who says that wrong.
Memes.
Oh, me. I haven't even heard that one yet. Okay. I'm going to call it the meme. But they're really funny, and you always got great content up. So definitely go check her out.
Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you.
Absolutely. Well, we know that we'll hopefully have you back again, 3 times our charm. So where can you find me? Well, aside from finding me in the dark, you can find me at energeticprinciples.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Energetic Principles. And once again, if you want to check out my tarot subscription online and all my Patreon stuff, you can find that at patreon.com/energetic principles. And like Analisa, I also do consultations, either one-on-one here in San Diego or via Zoom, anywhere in the world. And I do one that's called Astro Meets Tarot, where I combine both astrology and tarot together. And if you like what you hear today, spread the good word, because as the Leos say, sharing is caring. So it's good to let other people know. And if you feel so inclined to also share your words of encouragement, I will gladly accept a nice review on iTunes, because that will help me get more visible in the future. So, all right. Thank you again, Analisa, for being here. Wishing you a wonderful eclipse.
You too.
And yes. Woo! All right. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And until next time, may the stars be with you.